Well, hello.
Hi, guys.
So welcome to Every Girl Living. This is where we're back. We're doing our thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't know, Every Girl Living Live is about just talking about issues that affect you. We want every girl to be able to just thrive and find their way. And so today we wanted to talk about just shifting. We were kind of just talking about different times. We both have had times of shifting.
Yes.
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 So, Marlys, what does shifting mean to you?
So for me, I think it's different than change. I don't know why. Like shifting is a change, but it's not necessarily change, right? And sometimes we can get shifted. And sometimes for me, shifting is a change in direction.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes you want that and sometimes you don't, right? Or sometimes you desire it, but it may also not be laid out, right? I think we all love especially me, I love a nice, wonderful plan, but shifts happen a lot of times when they're unexpected.
Yeah.
And it's kind of looking at what you can do while shifting, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally understand. And it is, shifting definitely can happen to us unexpectedly, right? And it's this, we don't always want it.
Yeah.
But I think most of us, like you said, want to have a clear-cut plan. So I don't know, how many of you like to have a clear-cut plan?
Oh, I love it.
So you can drop in our comments if you kind of want to share a little bit about kind of your struggle. Ask us some questions too. But yeah, I mean, shifting can really put us in a bind sometimes. But why it's important though, right? It is so important for us to go through these times of shifting.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, like, what are some examples maybe of times in your life? I feel like putting you on the spot, that you had to go through a time of shifting.
Yeah, I've learned that I'm very stubborn in nature.
Yeah.
So like I like things to be lined up before I decide to do them. But I've also learned, especially in life, that like I do well shifted. It actually, like, I wait too long, if that makes sense. So I think an example of my life, I remember being in about to graduate from undergrad. I'll never forget this. It was a week before my graduation, and I had no idea what I was gonna do. And my friend's like, well, let's apply for this program, blah blah. And I was just like, I don't really want to. I don't really know what I want to do, blah blah. Right? I want to do it. And I applied the day of the deadline, Yeah. And I graduated. I went through most of that month, like, not even knowing what was next.
Wow.
And just knowing that I got accepted. But even then it was just kind of like, is this really what I want to do?
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of it was like, it wasn't planned. Right. Like I was told something, it happened to be the day of, I did the interviews, I did all that stuff. And I remember feeling so anxious.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like, well, do I apply for jobs?
What do I do?
Yeah. Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And then I remember another time, like when I was an intern, again, it's just like, I want something, but nothing's planned out. Right. So again, it is another predicament of, I was kind of put in a position. Right. And it's worked out for my favor, but I'm very stubborn because it doesn't really happen the way I want.
Yeah.
But it ends up being what I needed.
Yeah.
Right. So those are the times that like I've experienced shifting. And a lot of it was also grief. So like after being shifted, then going to the grieving process of
being,
it didn't go the way I would like it to have gone. But I also don't, looking back on a lot of the circumstances now, I don't regret it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's hard to go through that a lot of the times.
Well, and Christy tells us, she says, I do like to have a clear-cut plan, but realistically, that doesn't work out too often.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think that's kind of why we're talking about this today, definitely. Yeah, and I know for me, there's been times where I like change, and I think I'm one of the
few people
that I get bored easy, and so and so I'm like, let's mix it up. But saying that, I will end up maybe getting really bullheaded about, okay, this is the direction I need to go. And these are the changes. And so sometimes plans or things will happen that will almost like, it reminds me of the Bible verse where, I just went blank on this about where he wrestles with the angel where it was God.
Oh, yes.
And he gets,
Jacob. Yes.
Yeah. And then he gets hit on the hip, right?
Yes.
And it knocks him out and he's got a limp. And I think sometimes I feel like God sometimes will like almost have to like limp me to make me slow down. To be able to listen, because sometimes I just want to, go full steam ahead. And that's can be a real problem, because I think then I miss out on maybe a blessing or something else of really the direction where maybe God wants me. And that's been very hard for me at times, because I will think in my mind, like, this is the way it should be. And I don't know how many people have maybe had those times where in their lives where they're like, it shouldn't be this way. Like, I did everything. In fact, I was just talking to somebody the other day, but I did everything right. And why is it that my life looks the way it does?
Yes. And you know what? Like, there's truth in that, right? Like, it shouldn't be that way. Because while you're talking, it made me think of, like, I do get bored, but I think I lose a sense of who I am, if that makes sense, right? So it's like, well, I feel secure, but I can still feel bored and secured. Right. So I think another part of it is like, it should be this way. So it's kind of like, well, I want to enter this space the way I planned it. I want to leave this space the way I planned it. I want to do this the way I planned it. And it can be a great plan. Like, you've made great plans. I've made great plans. Like, we make great plans, right?
Together we've made really
exactly
great plans.
Right. Like, this was a plan, right? But like, it doesn't. And that is kind of the limp part. And it's being like, okay, what is this limp teaching me? Me, for the first 2 weeks, I'm like, I don't like this limp. I think it's horrible. I don't deserve a limp. And then after that,
I did everything right. Why am I being, and instead of being able to, maybe there is a reason why I need to slow down. Maybe there's a reason why I need to be in this place. And so can I be okay with it? Can I be, we talk about that so much, I think. It was like, can I be okay in this time, in this season, in this place where I am, in this desert? And sometimes it is just having to learn something, right?
It is.
And then sometimes it is because, well, I think about my son, I was just thinking, I giggled because I was thinking if he did watch this, he's probably like, would be rolling his eyes right now. Like, why are you bringing me up? But he kind of like you has this issue with, like, things have to get really uncomfortable before he moves. And there's been so many times, and he's kind of found himself in another situation where it's like, I'm uncomfortable. And so now it's time to move. And I guess I am the same way too. I think we probably all are to some extent, but I do like to plan ahead more. So I will tend to kind of do that. And I've had to actually learn to not plan ahead, of being able to just be like
kind of do it through.
Just be through it. Just like let's just sit in this.
Live rogue. Welcome.
Live rogue. And that's hard. Like, I just want to have like an idea of what's the next thing. And I had this realization the other day. I was walking the dog, and I thought, everything I had worked for is actually, I've kind of realized it to some extent. Not that I'm like, I've arrived, but, and I haven't, but for most part, like a lot of the big plans in my 20s that I had, I'm at that place. But in my mind, like, it was still like, okay, you got to go, you got to do, you got to kind of plan ahead all this thing. And so now I'm at this time in this space where I think God is shifting me to, can you just be chill? Can you just
sit down?
Can you just sit for a minute? And so I wonder, I guess my question for a lot of folks maybe listening today is, are you going through a shift? Or number one, are you going through a shift? And if you are, maybe what is it that God is maybe doing? Why are you here? Is there a reason maybe a lesson to be learned, or a blessing to be given, a gift to be given, that, a reason?
And I think a lot of it is also like, is the shifting coming at a time that is meant for you? Right? Because, I was chatting with someone a couple weeks ago, and, he was like, I know it's going to be different. So he's like, I have to start planning now. Very similar to what you're talking about. But it was like little increments. It was like little shifts, right? Because a shift also doesn't have to be huge.
That's true.
It can just be like, oh, this little hint, or this little change, or this little, and we have that sense. We talk a lot about, especially like during Soulborns, like we talk a lot about like our gut, right? And what our gut is saying, what our body is saying. And when we do listen, and when we do follow, it kind of gives us an inkling, because we've had those moments where it's like, oh, I know I had a weird feeling. I should have listened to it, right? So like, those can also be little shifts.
Yeah.
Even if it's like you go a different way than you did going to work one day for no reason, and then you get to work and you realize there was a huge back-to-back car accident. That's like, it doesn't have to be like huge ones all the time either, because I think that's the ones we notice.
Yeah.
Right. But the little tiny shifts, I think, build up to it in a weird way.
Where maybe think about like, where is God ordaining our steps? Like,
yeah,
how are our steps being kind of led and that type of thing. Yeah. So I think those are powerful things. One thing I wanted to also bring up is that it's so important for us to document the journey, because a lot of, we forget. And I think as humans, this is a huge problem for us, is that we have a lot of short-term memory issues, right? Like we forget something. So we maybe have gone through a season and we will either not remember it accurately or we won't remember it at all.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so if we can document it either in journaling or
taking pictures
or some other way.
Yeah.
And I wonder, for those that are watching, are there ways that you've learned how to document your journey? So maybe you journal, or maybe you take pictures. Maybe you've written a book.
Yeah.
That'd be cool, right?
Someone the other day told me that they're writing a book not to publish, but just for themselves.
Yeah.
So they can document their life story.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. Especially if you're a writer.
Yeah.
But just finding ways to be able to share that.
Yeah.
I think even sharing our story with other people of like, this is where I've been and what's been happening is really powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one thing I was thinking is pictures are so important, because sometimes like I'll look at pictures of myself and it's just like, I didn't even know that's what I was looking like. Right. Or I didn't even know. And it reminds me of like what I was going through back then. Right. Like I just found this picture of like when my friends graduated college, like they have like a photo booth, and it just brought back, like, I remember going back there and that day and walking and doing the stroll. So I always tell folks, like, document moments, especially when you're going through a shift and it's not the best, right? Like there are times that like I'm shifting and it's not always the most pleasant. But I have to like look at the picture. I look at my pictures, I think, like once a week of just like, oh, look, this happened last week. Yeah. It's not all bad, right? Yeah. Like, I think that's so important. Yeah. And to also like document your community, right?
Why is that? What do you think?
I think it's because so many times when folks go through things, they feel alone. And it's so important to know that you're not always necessarily alone, right? Like someone liked you enough to invite you to a party. Right, like something just like that, or like a dinner or something like that. So I think just documenting, or even if you have pictures on your phone that are of other people, those are other people in your life that they were intimate enough to have a photo with, right? Like, so I think that's so important to remind yourself, I'm not alone. I may feel alone, but I'm not alone. I'm not always down on the dumps. I may feel that way right now, but I'm not forever. Right. And someone shared with me, like, he's like, Marlys, I've been in the highs and I've been in the lows. I think it's important to know that, like, we'll shift and then we'll go back to center, and then we'll shift again and then we'll go back to center.
We'll go back to neutral.
Yes. And that's okay. Right. Like it would be boring if we didn't.
That's true.
Right.
Very true. But I really like what you had said about how, as kind of this, we forget that we do have people in our lives. And sometimes especially if we're going through a shift that's really bringing up depression, where we're sad about something, we tend to isolate. And as a result, when we isolate, we also then maybe pull away from people. And then we don't realize that these people still love us and they still care about us.
Yes.
But maybe they're not calling the way we think they should, but that doesn't mean that they don't care about us. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And so we get kind of really in our heads about things. And so it's so important to be able to say, no, these people still love me. They still care about me. I have these great times with them. And then maybe that would be enough to say, I need to reach out to that person. Yeah. I need to call them, text them, whatever. Hey, I'm still alive.
Yes. I just did that, right? I was looking through, my mom's cleaning out the garage. So there's tons of like stuff. I keep everything. Like I keep cars from like when I was like 9. Okay. And so she's like, Marlys, there's like a box of their stuff. So I'm looking through them, and I found a letter from one of my close friends when he went to boot camp. And so I saw it and I just like took a picture and I was like, hey, oh my gosh, like I saw this and it made me think. And he's just like, hey, this is what I mean, I talk to him all the time, like, but like it was that memory for him, like, oh my gosh, you have that.
Yeah.
I'm leaving. Like, I'm leaving soon from there, right? Like, so what you said is true, is like just that reach out, right? Of this brought up something, this was a memory, I still have it. And sharing that, like that connection.
So what out of just the things that we've talked about so far today, it sounds like what we really need to is that we need to not fight the shift.
Yeah.
Right. So we need to be able to go, okay, I'm going through a shift. And let me highlight one important piece of that is what I'm learning so much is that when we fight the inevitable, when we fight, like if somebody has cancer and I fight that I shouldn't have cancer.
Yeah.
The pain, that's the pain. That's the pain. If I can say, yes, I have cancer and I don't like it.
Yeah.
But I have it. Now what can I do about it? There's this, like, it lightens it.
Yeah. Because you're actually dealing with the problem instead of a problem about the problem.
Yeah.
Right.
So I have to accept. So I have to be like, okay, this is the shift. This is what I'm going through. It's not because I did something wrong or that God hates me or somebody else hates me. It's just
life. It is.
It is. So I accept it. And then I can make a plan.
Yes.
To kind of what I need to do, but it's going to be a loose plan.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So there's going to be kind of this like, okay, so I'm going through this. Let's kind of, move through to the next step. And looking for opportunities to see what's happening. I'm going to document the journey. And then I'm also going to reach out to others for support.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you think that would be important for as we go through the shift? Because we got kind of like 4 steps there.
Yeah. The only thing I would also like to say is like to give yourself grace. I think that's huge in it, right? Like we see that a lot, like all the therapists around, like give yourself grace, right? Yeah. And a lot of folks don't necessarily know what that means. It doesn't mean giving yourself an excuse, right? No. It means, okay, I am, dealing with something or facing something that I have not, right? For most folks, that's the shift they're experiencing, right? Like I have not dealt with this. So you're doing it in the most human way possible, right? Which also means when I mess up, right? Or if I mess up, I'm going to give myself grace because it goes back to what you said, problem about the problem. If I beat myself up, I'm not attacking the problem as opposed to, I don't like the way I dealt with that. Okay. What can I do differently?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm looking at, I want to kind of piggyback on that grace part that you're talking about. It's compassion, right?
Yeah.
I'm showing myself self-compassion that I have, it's that I'm okay, that yes, I might make a mistake, like you said, but this is all a part of the journey.
Yeah.
So any perfectionist out there, which I'm a recovering perfectionist, we struggle. Yeah. Right. Because we want to be perfect. And I don't know how many years I literally hid behind kind of this perfection. In fact, I was talking to my son over the holiday. We went to Topgolf and I was really getting frustrated because I suck at it so bad. And he's like, kind of like, he's like, what is your problem? Like, like what? And I was like, okay, truth be told is that I am pretty competitive. And he's like, really? But I don't say that. Like, I'm not like one of those people that would go, I'm competitive,
Yes.
I do it very covertly. And so I had to really have this come to Jesus talk in my head of like, stop, just have fun.
Yes.
Who cares that you came in last?
Yes.
But it bothered me and it was having a hard time like letting it go.
Yes.
And he's just like, this is ridiculous. Yeah. What is this so ridiculous? But that I think is that sometimes it's that same kind of thing. It's like, if we go in going, I've got to be able to be perfect at this and be able to do great at this all the time, we're going to miss out on things.
Yeah. You won't enjoy it.
No. Yeah. And that's what I was starting to say about like, I hid behind, like, if I can't do something expert level, then I don't like doing it. Yeah. You probably knew that about me. And I'm having to learn that I'm missing out on so much.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I can pick up on things pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But I miss out. Like, so even being a yoga teacher, that was like a big, huge thing for me to go in because I wasn't the best at it. And having to, which is, if you're a yoga teacher and know anything about yoga, that's like, doesn't even make sense. But in my mind, I had an idea of what a perfect yoga person would be. And I didn't meet that up. So I had to like lean into that discomfort.
Yeah.
So part of this process is leaning into the discomfort and giving us grace.
Absolutely. Whereas I don't care if I'm not good at something, but I'm pick up on many things at one time. So in my head, I'm like, well, I can do it all.
Yeah.
I cannot.
No, you can't.
So my discomfort is, so I cannot. That's okay. Like, we can enjoy doing something and not have to do it. We can just enjoy it and be good at it, right? But like, it doesn't have to be a means of service or a means of a skill or a means of a job, right? Like, it's just, I'm good at it and that's it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so it's not as perfectionistic, but it's very much like, well, I can do it.
But then you've got like 50
5
million things on your plate.
Yeah.
And you can't do it all.
Yeah. So it's just kind of that grace of, it's okay, Marlys, that you can't do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you have no purpose. It's just, you can still be good at things, but not have to purposely do it for somebody else.
Yeah.
Which I think is the ever evolving thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I think probably for a lot of those of you that are watching too, is that it's hard because you might struggle with that too. Of like either I've got to do it perfectly, or I've got to do everything, or I've always got to be doing it for someone else. One of the books that I'm reading right now is on play. And I'm very much realizing, I've been kind of on this journey for a while, is that we have to have time for play. So kind of like the self-compassion. Yeah. But we have to have outlets for play. We have to have that time of just being, doing nothing for, not necessarily doing nothing, but it has not purpose, like you said, serving.
Not purpose driven.
Yeah. Yeah. Where it's not like, I'm just doing something for fun. It doesn't mean that it has any.
It's not a side hustle. It's not a job. It's not, it's just, I'm coloring.
I'm coloring. I'm painting. I'm reading.
Yes.
I'm playing a game. I played solitaire.
I love solitaire.
I played solitaire the other day, like literally not on my phone. Well, I did on my phone too, but I also played it like on the cards. I actually found, it was so funny. Like, I know we have a deck of cards here somewhere. And I'm like, I'm going to do this. And I finally found them. They were like hidden away from when we had a blackout, our power outage. So I had to find them. But yeah, and I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, I had to like look up like how to play because I couldn't remember. Like, I think I know how to do this. And so, and I fortunately did. But anyway, it was just fun to kind of like just do that. I listened to jazz music.
Oh, yes.
And there was no point. Like, and to me, like playing cards, there's no benefit. Like there's
this is truly for pure entertainment and joy.
Yeah, that's all.
That's true.
Like there's no
win. There's no.
I'm never going to be like a poker player for money.
No.
So,
no.
Yeah, definitely not. So real quick, I will wrap up again, and then we'll do our takeaways today. Yeah. But so first of all, I think, let's see. The first one was that we have to accept that we're going through a time of shifting, right? And then we have to give ourselves grace. I think we kind of threw one in there. Give ourselves grace during that time and self-compassion.
Yeah.
And then it's okay to have a plan, but it's a loosely held plan. And then we go into documentation. We're going to document this. We're going to, track our journey. And then what was our last one? Play.
Yeah. Find time, especially like while you're shifting.
Yeah. Right.
Like you don't have to wait for play.
Yeah.
Right. I think like we wait for recess to have fun. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and we hear that a lot in like adulthood. Like next year I'll use all my PTO and go on this trip. Or when I retire, I'll go, right. Like that's play. Like, but you don't have to wait to do a big Europe trip. You can just do a weekend or to Savannah. Yeah. That's play. Right. So,
or just a evening with your dog.
Yeah. Right. Like, so I think playing while shifting is a huge step in that. Yeah. So
what are your takeaways from today?
I think that like finding ways to play and just enjoying it and just enjoying that moment and documenting that as well. I think that's a huge thing for me is like, I just did something today. And that's it.
Yeah. I love that. Well, and I just want to share or ask you, what is your takeaway from today's discussion? For me, the takeaway would be, I think it's kind of something that it's an over idea, not just one specific thing, but finding joy in the journey. I know it's really cliche. I mean, I have something.
Great Hallmark cards.
Yes. I know, and I have like something hanging out in my office with that. But it really, truly is that even during a time of shift, there's something that I can be thankful for. There's something I can be grateful for. And being able to acknowledge that this isn't a waste.
Yes.
That this is not a waste of time. And I think that for me is so hard. I think I'm like, you know, because it wasn't the plan, I'm like, well, this is just like, I'm stuck in the mud somewhere and this is taking up my time and we've got to hurry up and get going. And instead going, no, I wouldn't have seen that sunset if I hadn't gotten stuck in the mud.
Yeah.
So can I find the joy and the pieces in that? One of the things that I've been doing, and if you are of a person of faith, this is such a beautiful practice, is called the Examine. And so I've been doing the Examine every evening for the last week. And it's just this beautiful prayer by St. Ignatius where there's 5 kind of steps to it, where it leads you through these ideas of like where you know, examine your day, what was going on in your day, and where did God show up in your day? Where are some little places of light that happened that you can kind of say, well, you know, I think that God was there. That was a gift from him or whatever. What are the areas that you feel like, you know, you feel good about? What are the areas that maybe you thought, I probably should maybe work on that area? And then being able to give that to God and then being able to look at the time, you know, for the next day.
Yeah.
And it's been very helpful. I will say that there's been a few times where I fell asleep during it, but so I got to start a little bit earlier. But I think that's a practice of just kind of life, especially as we shift, is can we look for those times of light even during the shift? And so
great.
So real quick, thank you again for everyone who is watching, and thank you, Christy, for watching and staying with us this whole entire time. The other thing I really wanted to remind everybody is we're going to be starting back yoga. So Victoria and Danny, our yoga teachers, they've got a great schedule. We'll be publishing that next week. We also got Soulborn that's continuing to go. So that's a women's support group or empowerment group that is available to all of our members. And so we'd love to have you participate with that. And then we also have our women's wellness boot camp that's going to be starting pretty quickly. So we need to kind of get the notice out on that, but we will definitely be posting some information on if you'd like to join us. It's a free for anyone. And we'd love to have you join us and really just learning ways to kind of empower yourself, and it'll cover areas of your mental health or your emotional health, your spiritual health, your financial health. What else? 5 areas. Physical health.
Yes.
And one more. There was one more on that. Social health. Yeah, your relational health. So yeah, definitely come join us on that. It'll be on Tuesdays at 6:30 for 5 weeks. We'll put out the start date very soon, but it's going to start this month. And anyway, so we look forward to talking to you soon. All right, have a great rest of your day.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.